weekly Know Your Enemy segment. We're actually going to put a little asterisk on the enemy part because our next guest to come on and preview the Utah Utes is an Arizona State grad, but currently he is with the Zone 1280 in Salt Lake City. He is Patrick Kinahan. Patrick, how are you tonight?
I'm doing well. Fear the fork.
Excellent. Now, let's start with kind of a broad picture here. What's your take on the Utes season thus far? They opened the year with a nice, easy win over Northern Colorado, and then the upset to Utah State before that big kind of crazy finish win last week against BYU.
I think they've underachieved so far. I expected them to be better. I mean, the thought all along, for me anyway, was that they'd be 3-0 going into this game, and they would actually be favored going into this game based on they were picked to be second in the preseason bowl behind USC. But, a lot of things have changed and have gone crazy already with USC losing. I think the thing that has been true to form is their defense. Their defense is outstanding. Their special teams has been awful, and offensively they've been very inconsistent.
Coach Whittingham seems to expect a handful of very key players back in the lineup, like John White, safety Brian Black, and Eric Rowe. Is that still in the plan for these three to return this week? And how much better do you think the Utes are going to be with them in the lineup?
Well, I think they'll definitely be better offensively with John White. Now, John White, talked to him today. He didn't practice today. A week ago, we got the word that, hey, he was going to be out for the BYU game, and I heard some news that said he might even be out for a couple of weeks. After this week, they have the bye, as all teams in the Pac-12 who play on Thursday have a bye on the week before. And so there's now a thought process that he may sit out this Saturday, and then following next Saturday with the bye. That would give him 3 weeks, obviously. Utah decided last week that they were going to discuss injuries. John White last week on Wednesday, after not practicing Tuesday, he said he had a class to attend, and then Wednesday said he was 100%. Obviously, he doesn't play in the game. Today, he was in full uniform, but he did not practice. He said he feels fine, but he was very quiet, and he's not exactly a big-time talker, but he was exceptionally quiet. So I have serious doubts whether he'll play this week. We'll have to see. And he's a 1,500-yard rusher, and he's a JC transfer. And the thing that what's interesting, until Saturday, since he's been in the program, if he didn't rush for 100 yards, they lost. Last Saturday was the first time since he's been in the program for 2 years that he didn't run for 100 yards and they won. Obviously, he didn't run for any yards. So he's a significant key to that offense. And if he's not there, they may have some struggles on offense. Eric Rowe is a great defensive back as a true freshman, started last year. Freshman All-American and safety. Brian Blecken was suspended for 3 games. This will be his first game back. I think Blecken and Rowe as safeties, they might be as good a tandem, recognizing that somebody like SC has McDonald, who's very, very good. They're not of his level, but I'm talking the two of them. They're pretty good together. So, yeah, with those guys back on defense, they're already good. They're going to be better.
Now, another big storyline on offense is at quarterback, where ASU fans got a look last year at John Hayes during their battle in Salt Lake. How do you compare Hayes as a starter last year as opposed to right now?
It's not even close. It would be like comparing the discipline of the Sun Devils last year to the discipline this year. It is just drastically improved. John Hayes' first start last year as a collegian was against ASU, and he was wide-eyed, and he really had no clue what he was doing. He's a kid who was a junior college kid who went to a Division II school in Nebraska, and then they dropped the program, and so Utah brought him on as a late-season addition in the recruiting game long after the signing date, and nobody knew what to expect. He quartered himself well as the season progressed, winning the bowl game against the Georgia Tech team in the Sun Bowl. But when he started against ASU, he wasn't very good at all. Now he's got a full year, and I thought he looked extremely improved in fall camp, and he's proven it because he was steady against BYU. And the great thing about him, you could practically run over him with a truck, and he'll bounce right back up. As tough a kid as possible. Kyle Whittingham made a statement this week. He said, John Hayes' mental and physical toughness is infectious on this team. And so that he's not a big-time talent, but he's a big-time gamer.
Now, even though Utah is seemingly a run-first team, they do have some dangerous receiving threats like speedy Devontae Christopher and Drez Anderson. What kind of threat do you think the Utah passing game will present on Saturday?
I think it'll be better because they know that Hayes is their guy. They actually have some decent skilled players. The receivers you just mentioned, There's another kid named Kenneth Scott who's turning out to be a big-time player for them. Dress Anderson, the son of Flipper Anderson, who played in the NFL. Devontae Christopher, recruited as a quarterback out of Las Vegas. He's a senior now, and he's just gotten better and better. He doesn't get a lot of publicity because he doesn't have a big-time quarterback throwing him the ball. But I can tell you, if he was in an offense like USC's, we'd all know about him. I think he has the potential to be an NFL talent.
Now, it seems like outside of injuries, the one major area of concern for Utah may be along the offensive line, where they lost a pair of all Pac-12 tackles. Would you evaluate the unit so far, and how do you think they'll do the remainder of the season?
That's going to be critical. That's the key right there to Utah's success this season, that offensive line, because I think they know what they're going to get at all aspects of the game. Their special teams has been surprisingly subpar, but I think they can get that fixed. The offensive line is going to be the key critical factor. If they can do what they need to do, that's just going to increase their chances. Now, against Utah State, they weren't good at all. Northern Colorado, forget it. That's lousy competition. That's a bad Big Sky team. Utah State, they weren't good at all. I'd grade them out to about D. And then against BYU, there was significant improvement, but you have to keep in mind that anything was going to be significant improvement. It's not like this is a strength of the team just yet. They have a lot of question marks that need to be answered. They've been shifting guys around, and they think they've found a combination. They were happy with the way they played on the offensive line, but Whittingham also said this week at his weekly press conference that they still have a long way to go. So if ASU can find a way to confuse them, get some pressure on Hayes and so forth, that's really going to increase their chances to win.
Now, switching over to the team's strength on defense, the big name is, of course, All-American caliber defensive tackle star Lodolele. How good is he, and what does he mean to the Utah defense?
He means everything, and that whole defense is built around him. Every offensive coordinator, I think, has nightmares about this kid. It's amazing because he would have been a first-round draft pick last year. He decides to come back. He's a quiet kid. He's local. Interesting story, struggled academically in high school, went to a junior college, wasn't even sure about his football future, and has come on big time. And last year really came into his own. And now they're talking about he'll be the first defensive lineman to be drafted in the NFL. We'll see how that plays out. But he's a stud. His first name is Star, and that's exactly what he is. And Whittingham said by far against BYU when they graded out and look at the film, he was a player of the game. And he can just do so many things, and he's in great shape. He played, I think there was like 77 snaps, and he played 74 of them. He doesn't need to come out. He's so good, so aggressive that you just have to have minimum 2 guys on him. And then obviously that opens up areas for other guys because you have to account for him so much on every single play.
And, of course, he's not the only defensive playmaker out there. The Utes have guys like Trevor Riley and John Kruger on units that currently ranks 25th in the nation in total defense. What can ASU fans expect to see out of the Utah defense on Saturday night?
Well, their defensive line is outstanding, and they've had a great tradition over the years of putting guys off the defensive line into the NFL. Cole Misi, Paul Kruger for Baltimore. Last year, probably their 3rd or 4th best defensive lineman was a kid named Derek Shelby, and he made the NFL this year. He's on an NFL roster right now. They've got the Kruger brothers, Paul Kruger, 2 younger brothers. They both start, one in the middle, one on the outside, and there's still one more to come in high school. And so that family has been great to the University of Utah. Interestingly, they have one daughter in that family, and she married one of those linemen that you just referenced in the prior question, Tony Bergstrom, who was All Pac-12, who's with the Oakland Raiders right now. So that bloodline there has been very good at the University of Utah and probably will be for the next couple generations. And Trevor Riley is a kid who can do so many things. They alternate him between lining up down and being a stand-up linebacker on the end. And they can really string you out, And I know ASU likes to run the spread. And it's going to be really interesting because these down linemen can cover some ground pretty well. And especially if you try to get wide, they can get from inside to outside really quickly and make you string it out and get closer to the sideline and use the sideline as an extra man. So I'm going to be really interested to see what happens with ASU and their quarterback and Kelly and what is he going to do as far as does he hand it off, does he take it on his own. It might be an opportunity to see what Cameron Marshall can do because I know he hasn't been doing much so far.
Now you kind of stole my next question. After Missouri was able to frustrate quarterback Taylor Kelly on Saturday, do you think that Utah is going to kind of mimic the same scheme? What do you think the defensive plan of attack to shut down the Sun Devils with Taylor Kelly and Cameron Marshall is going to be?
Well, Kyle Whittingham's an old linebacker. His father, deceased now, played linebacker in the NFL. These guys are meat and potato guys, and Kyle coached under his dad here at Utah. And as I say, meat and potatoes meaning that it's all about blocking and tackling, and you have to stop the run. Everything hinges on that, and Whittingham preaches that over and over again. He was defensive coordinator before he became head coach for 10 years, I think, or so, at Utah. So they're going to look to stop the run, look to stop in all forms, whatever that might be. If it's Foster, Kelly on the outside, if it's Marshall up the middle, that junior college kid that they got, whatever it might be, that's what they're going to look to do. So I think as far as what ASU is going to have to do, they might have to throw the ball a little bit more because Utah is usually very good at stopping the run.
Now, in your view, what do you think are the key overall keys to the game for both the Sun Devils and the Utes?
I think it's going to be like it is a lot of times, come down to turnovers. When ASU came up here to Rice Eccles last year, they just gave the ball. Utah gave the ball to the Sun Devils so many times that the Sun Devils finally in the second half just took advantage of it. And Whittingham just preaches that over and over again. And we know that turnovers really doomed ASU against Missouri with the fumbled punt, and then the punter couldn't hold the ball. So special teams are going to be a factor too. And as I say, Utah has not been very good on special teams. Now, neither was ASU. I was watching that game in the press box, and I just alluded to Miles and the punter making two critical mistakes. So I think it's going to come down to who makes the fewest mistakes is going to have the better chance to win, because right now I don't see a whole lot of separation between these two teams, which is a good thing for ASU, because if you would ask me this back in June and July, I would have said Utah is going to win and win fairly easily. Now I don't think that.
Now, last question, with the unpredictable nature of the Pac-12 South that we've seen so far this season, how would you describe the magnitude of this game for both teams?
Oh, I think it is gigantic, because for the Sun Devils, Todd Graham has been running around saying it's a new day. I joke, I'm a Sun Devil alum, and I joked with Graham at Pac-12 Media Day in Los Angeles this year that I was the only one that he didn't personally kiss on the cheek who's a Sun Devil alumni, because he was all over the place, as we know. And that sounds good, and we saw a difference in the home games, no doubt about it. But then they go on the road, and I'm seeing the same thing that I've seen the last several years under Erickson: sloppy play and stupid mistakes and penalties. So right now I'm thinking, okay, well, you corrected it a little bit, and maybe it's just too much to ask Graham to correct everything overnight, and he needs more time. But if he can have a clean game, get his team to play a clean game on Saturday, and they win, that gives them a ton of momentum, I think, because you're trying to buy in, and he's trying to sell. And each time they have success, the fans, the players, everybody buys in a little bit more. So I think for them it's critical. And then for the Utes, boy, if they go out on the road, they can say, okay, yeah, that Utah State game, we struggled, but that was with Jordan Wynn, and he was injured. Now he's done. Look what John Hayes has done. He beat BYU at home. BYU was ranked, and it's a rivalry game, and so the emotions run crazy. And then we go down to Tempe, and he wins out on the road. That sets them up, and then they have a week off, and then they get SC at home. And SC obviously all of a sudden looking vulnerable. And so really, I think this game, I don't want to make too big of a deal about it, because Utah started 0-4 in the conference last year and then came back and won 4 in a row. And we know what ASU did. They were the absolute reverse. So things can change. But I think this game here Saturday can be a big-time tone setter for whichever team wins.
Patrick, I really appreciate you taking the time to join us tonight and share your expert insider knowledge of the Utah Utes.
All right, thank you.